The inheritance letter felt heavier than the paper it was printed on. Arif had never known his great-uncle, a recluse who lived and died in the sprawling Blackwood estate, miles away from the nearest town. Arif, a cynical city accountant, saw only dollar signs. He would drive up, assess the property, prepare it for a quick sale, and return to his spreadsheets. He arrived just as the sun was bleeding behind the dense tree line. The estate was massive, a Gothic skeleton of rotting wood and ivy that seemed to choke the very brickwork. The air was stagnant, heavy with the smell of damp earth and pine needles. The only other person on the grounds was Rahim, an ancient groundskeeper whose skin looked like crumpled parchment. Rahim handed over a heavy ring of iron keys, his hands trembling slightly. "Stay in the main wing, Master Arif," Rahim croaked, his eyes darting toward the overgrown garden at the back of the house. "The electricity is faulty in the east wing, and the garden, it is best left undisturbed after dark." Arif chuckled nervously. "Wild animals?" Rahim didn't smile. "Something like that. And sir, whatever you hear out there, do not answer it. The echoes in this valley, they played tricks on the mind." Arif dismissed the old man's ramblings as rural superstition. He spent the first few hours exploring the dusty halls, cataloging antique furniture draped in white sheets that looked like silent ghosts in the moonlight. The first night was uneventful, save for the settling groans of the old house. It was on the second night that the silence broke. Arif was startled awake at 3:17 a.m. by a sound that didn't belong in the woods. It wasn't a hoot of an owl or the rustle of deer. It was a giggle, clear, childish, and terrifyingly familiar. He sat bolt upright, his heart hammering against his ribs. He hadn't heard that laugh in 15 years, not since the accident at the lake that took his little sister, Maya. "It's just the wind," he told himself, gripping the blankets. Rahim said the echoes played tricks. Then it came again, closer this time, just outside his window. "Arif! Arif!" A cold sweat broke across his forehead. It was Maya's voice, not a generic child's voice, but hers, the specific cadence, the slight lisp she had before she died at age 7. Driven by a mixture of paralyzing fear and agonizing curiosity, Arif crept to the window. The moon cast long skeletal shadows across the overgrown garden. The source of the sound seemed to be coming from the far end, near a dense thicket of thorns. "Arif, it's cold. Let me in." The voice was pathetic, pleading. It tore at the scar tissue of his old grief. He grabbed a heavy flashlight and went downstairs, ignoring the screaming instinct in his brain telling him to lock the door. He stepped out into the humid night air. The cicadas had stopped singing. The silence was absolute, heavy like a physical weight. "Maya?" he whispered. "Here, Arif, over here." The voice led him through the thorny, overgrown path, deeper into the neglected garden than he had ventured before. He finally emerged into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing sat an ancient stone well. It was capped with a heavy slab of slate, sealed with mortar that looked centuries old. Strange, jagged symbols were carved in the stone rim, warnings in a language long forgotten. The voice was coming from inside the sealed well. "Arif, please, it's dark down here. The old man locked me in." Arif's rational mind fractured. It was impossible. Maya was buried in the city cemetery. This was a trick. Yet the emotional pull was overwhelming. The grief he had suppressed for years clawed its way to the surface. "Who are you?" Arif demanded, his voice shaking. The voice inside shifted. It dropped an octave, losing the childish lisp for a split second before correcting itself. "It's me, big brother. Open the well." He noticed something else then. The air around the well was freezing cold, despite the summer heat, and there was a smell, not of rot, but of ozone and wet copper. "Rahim said not to answer," Arif muttered, backing away slowly. The voice inside the well changed instantly. The pretense of Maya dropped completely. It didn't scream, it mimicked. It played back Arif's own voice from 10 seconds ago, perfectly. "Who are you?" Then it played Rahim's voice. "Do not answer it." Then a cacophony of voices erupted from beneath the slate cap. Hundreds of them, old voices, young voices, crying, screaming, laughing hysterically. It sounded like a crowded train station trapped in a stone throat. They were overlapping, arguing, a chaotic symphony of stolen sounds. Arif realized with dawning horror what this place was. It wasn't a haunting, it was a trap. Something down there had been listening for centuries, collecting the sounds of the living to bait its hook. He turned to run, but the ground beneath him felt spongy, wrong. The roots of the surrounding trees seemed to writhe in the flashlight beam. Behind him, the heavy slate cap on the well began to grind against the stone. The mortar cracked with the sound of snapping bone. It wasn't sealed to keep people out, Arif realized in terror. It was sealed to keep something in. The slab shifted just an inch, revealing absolute darkness underneath. The voices stopped instantly. A silence fell that was worse than the noise, a predatory silence. From the inch-wide gap in the well, a sound emerged. It wasn't a voice this time, it was a breath, a long, rattling inhalation that smelled of ancient dust and dried blood. Arif ran. He sprinted back through the thorns, tearing his clothes and skin, dropping his flashlight. He burst back into the main house and slammed the heavy oak door, sliding the deadbolt home. He backed away from the door, chest heaving. He was safe. He just had to wait until sunrise and leave this cursed place forever. He leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Then he froze. From the other side of the thick oak door, inches from his ear, came a perfect knock. Rap, rap, rap. And then his own voice, recorded and replayed perfectly, spoke through the wood. "Maya, are you out there?" The doorknob began to slowly turn.